Hey everyone, this is the Black Manga Critic here with another video for the channel. Now normally I do anime reviews on Watching Wednesdays, and look out for my review of Welcome to the Ballroom episode 3 and Made in Abyss episode 3. Both of those things were really good, did great things. So look out for that. And today I also did a Manga Monday review on Robot Laserbeam, just a review of the series of the 18 chapters and just like what I thought the manga does right in terms of a sort of battle shonen, because any sports shonen is a battle shonen. That's just facts. So look out for that review on the channel. Also remember, like, comment, and subscribe if you want to be notified for more content. Follow me on Twitter and find me on Facebook using the links in the description box. So basically, this is a review of Dragon Ball Super episode 100, and also just kind of like a critique of the shortcomings of the show. This isn't this isn't me going to bash Dragon Ball Super's facing or anything like that, because I'm still watching the show, right? So at some level, I enjoy watching Dragon Ball Super to an extent, right? It's not like I just completely don't enjoy watching Dragon Ball Super as a whole. I'm not throwing it into the garbage or anything like that. But what I will say is that if I'm going to be on YouTube and I'm going to be talking about shows and reviewing them and analyzing them, I have to come at them somewhat objectively, right? That doesn't mean that I'm gonna totally throw away my emotions and put them in the garbage or anything like that, because I don't think anyone really does that when they review or analyze anything. Especially if it's literature or any sort of medium that purports to tell a story of fiction, right? So okay, but if we're going to be talking about Dragon Ball Super episode 100 and just Dragon Ball Super as a whole, in relation to this episode, I'm not gonna be pulling any sort of punches, figuratively or anything like that. I'm just gonna come out and say look, episode 100 had some things that were, to me, deeply emblematic of the shortcomings of Dragon Ball Super. And hopefully you like this video. Hopefully, if you don't like the video, that's fine. But hopefully you like or dislike the video because you didn't agree. You thought certain points of my arguments or analysis or whatever didn't add up or didn't make sense or whatever. You can always feel free to tweet me. Feel free to comment below. Feel free to find me on Facebook. Anywhere that you can to get into a dialogue with me, because I'm all about dialogue. If you look at my Shokugeki no Soma chapter 224 review video, I got into a bit of a discussion with one of my viewers, and we had a really productive discussion. So this is going to be a productive discussion. So basically, the first thing I want to talk about in terms of Dragon Ball Super is just generally, in terms of episode 100, is how this episode is very much so emblematic of how you kind of have to come into the show as a viewer, right? So if you're coming into if you're coming into Dragon Ball Super and you're coming into episode 100, you've been here for for a while, right? You kind of understand that certain things are going to happen, certain things are not going to happen, right? So that's fine. And so for me, I understand that if I'm coming into episode 100 and I've already critiqued episode 97, 98, and 99, thoroughly, right? That means that I understand that episode 100 and what's going on with Kale as, sort of a Berserker Rage Super Saiyan and sort of tanking Goku's Super Saiyan Blue Kamehameha. That's just a thing that happens, right? You can't put any weight on that because this show has no sort of real conception of power scaling, of what they're trying to do with battles, of how battles act as metaphor. They don't have any conception as that, right? They don't have any conception of a fist symbolizing something, or a move symbolizing something, or a transformation symbolizing something. Maybe that was the case in Dragon Ball and in Dragon Ball Z to a certain extent, but in Dragon Ball Super, none of that means anything. It's all just flashy lights, battles that don't have any real sort of meat and potatoes, and you have to just come into these episodes expecting that, expecting zero metaphor, zero flashing lights with any sort of substance, zero character development. You have to come into it expecting that, right? Otherwise, every little thing that happens in Dragon Ball Super will will literally like make your brain explode, right? Like you might have an aneurysm, like if you might have a heart attack. Like all these things might happen because you're not sort of lowering your expectations even after you've gone through 100 episodes. That's you just gotta understand. If you watched 100 episodes of Dragon Ball Super, at this point you need to know that it's just like you can't expect substance in the same vein as like a Hunter x Hunter or Yu Yu Hakusho or The Promised Neverland or One Piece or what's another like quality shonen? Even like Toriko at first, you know what I mean? Like certain like shonen that are very much so quality, right? So you can't go into Dragon Ball Super expecting that. I'm sorry. You can go ahead and be angry. Like I'm not saying don't be angry. You know, just you can't be angry at someone who's enjoying a show. Like if they enjoy the show, then they just enjoy the show. Just let them enjoy the show. It's not a big deal, right? So basically, that's just what I have to in sort of a general sense in relation to episode 100, right? In terms of Kale and that sort of exchange between Kale and Goku, it's like, what do you expect? Like, you weren't going to expect that, like, Kale's Berserker Rage Super Saiyan form had any sort of, like, a metaphorical sort of value or any character development value. You didn't expect that Goku Super Saiyan Blue would have any sort of character development or any metaphorical value or any figurative value or anything like that, because like this show has consistently shown that that's not the case. So you know, if you're complaining about that stuff at episode 100, like you're complaining that you want more of that stuff. Like, and this is also something to me, like, I can't complain about this stuff anymore. Like, I can't be like, you know, oh, like, this show is incredibly mediocre and blah, 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 because, like, I sat through 100 episodes of it. Sorry, I can't complain in that way. But what I can do is critique the show. So that's what I'm going to do. Like, I'm going to critique the show and say, like, this is what's going on here. These things don't make any sense in the sort of space that is Dragon Ball Super, right? In the sort of space that is zero substance, flashing lights, you know, the sort of general kind of like whatever plot that they're, you know, presenting to us. That's what I'm going to do. So the first thing that I'm sort of going to get into, the second thing I'm going to sort of get into is the lack of sort of power scaling, right? Like, and when I say lack of power scaling, that doesn't mean that like power scaling is like devoid or non-existent, right? Because clearly there's power scaling, right? Clearly there are characters that are like weaker than other characters. So if we just like were to put like a sort of graph up and we said like, here's a character that's not weaker than this character, here's a character that's stronger than this character, we could have like a very, very rough sort of draft in terms of like power scaling. So I'm saying like, you know, here are these characters that can't beat these characters, right? So there is some semblance of like power scaling where, however, like, you know, weak and sort of illogical and lackadaisical like it is, it's there. So, you know, we do have that. But if you're looking for something like Hunter x Hunter, right, or sort of like a One Piece, or Yu Yu Hakusho, right, or a Toriko, right, or what are some other like, you know, battle action, or Naruto even, you know what I mean, like. Even Naruto like had some like semblance of like power scaling, right? It like, you know, before like I got crazy. But that's what I'm saying, right? Like it exists in Dragon Ball Super. It's just very, very weak and kind of illogical. And this is why you have some fans, right? You have some of the fans who use that very weak and sort of like, you know, lackadaisical power scaling that does exist. That's their basis for some of the videos that they make, right? Like, their basis isn't like Hunter x Hunter or Yu Yu Hakusho levels of power scaling. That's not their basis, right? They're not purporting that. They're not saying like, oh, you know, this power scaling compares to, you know, these other battle shonen in quality or whatever. They're not saying that. They're just saying like, this is what Dragon Ball Super is presenting, and like, you just have to deal with that, right? So that's kind of something that's sort of what I just want to say, right? Like, you have to come into this show and this episode is sort of saying like the power scaling is not going to make much sense. And if you have questions about the power scaling, this show isn't really going to answer them for you, right? So, and this is why you have the other sort of set of fans, right, who don't know what they're talking about, who come, into arguments and conversations with, documented and unsubstantiated facts, right? Like they come in with that garbage and they're like, oh, well, this thing happened in this episode and this battle happened in this episode. So, clearly this character could beat that character, right? And you don't know. I have no idea how Goku's going to do against Jiren. I have no idea how Hit's going to do against Jiren. I have no idea how, Vegeta's going to do against Toppo. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So so for me to be like Kale, who we have no real information about outside of the fact that she has a form, right? A transformation, right? And Goku, who, sometimes is holding back. Sometimes we don't even really know if he's holding back. Sometimes the music in the episode, right? Like in this episode, the music gets crazy, right? And it's like, Goku's going to do something amazing. But then gets like curb stomped, right? So, stuff like that, they come at you with like, they don't even come at you with that sort of information. Like some of these Dragon Ball Super stands come at you with like power scaling information that's just like, well, Kale represents Broly, and Broly could do these things, and that none of that makes any sense. So basically, is what I'm saying is like if you have a Dragon Ball Super fan that comes at you with power scaling that is clearly sort of presented to you in the episodes, then you just have to accept that, right? Like basically. And if you have another fan that comes at you with power scaling that is undocumented, unsubstantiated, in relation to the episodes that they're giving you, and guidebooks and databooks and stuff like that, or interviews or whatever, then like you need to say like go somewhere else, man. Go sit in a corner, sit in a closet, do what you gotta do. Keep running your mouth, but run your mouth in a closet. Go run your mouth in a corner, right? So that's basically what I gotta say about power scaling. I mean, like at this point, it can't really piss me off because like I'm not expecting Hunter x Hunter. I'm not expecting Yu Yu Hakusho. So the third thing that I really want to talk about is sort of pointless characters, right? And this is something that like again you have to expect from this series. And that's not saying that like because like clearly this series is very much so right, related to Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z in a way, right? Like it is like a sort of a continuation, but I think to me it's very, very clear in a lot of ways that like the ways that sort of Toriyama did his storytelling in Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z did not translate to Dragon Ball Super, right? So that's why you have a lot of things that don't make a lot of sense in terms of like power scaling, but also in terms of just like characters who were introduced who aren't particularly important or relevant to the narrative, who aren't particularly relevant to the general sort of like plot or arc that's going on at whatever time, right? Like Kale and Caulifla, like they're very much so important characters in this episode, right? But outside of this episode, outside of the episodes that they're in, they are almost completely irrelevant. And this is something that you see because the universes are so separated, right? Like if it wasn't for whatever like happened in terms of like the Tournament of Power, right? These universes wouldn't even be aware of one another outside of like the Kais and sort of the gods of the world, right? Of the universes. Like outside of them, none of the people are really aware of were really aware that other universes existed. So Kale and Caulifla are completely irrelevant to Universe 7, right? And Universe 7 is where the large chunk of Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Super happens, right? So anything that's going on in Dragon Ball 6 prior to their introduction, we don't care. We weren't introduced to that stuff. So even now, as we're being introduced to like all these universes, right, they don't really matter in the grand scheme of what's going on in Universe 7, right? It's not like people from Universe 6 are going to come and invade Universe 7 or people, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's not really going to happen in a way that is like palpable and poignant and great for storytelling. Just not going to happen. You're not going to see that. And you can clearly tell that from these episodes, right? Just from how the Tournament of Power sort of is set up. All this sort of arc is supposed to be doing, right, is eliminating universes, literally eliminating universes that don't really matter, right? Universe 9 only matters in this arc and in the episodes that they're introduced in. Outside of those episodes, they don't impact the narrative at all, right? The people in terms of Universe 6 don't impact it at all, right? Like someone like Kaba barely impacts Vegeta, right? Like he's aware that Kaba exists, but like outside of his episodes, like the episodes that he's in there, he has no real impact on Dragon Ball, on Universe 7, right? On the universe that we've been accustomed to. So that's what you just gotta expect. You gotta expect nonsense. You have to expect characters that don't have any real, tangible, palpable, poignant impact on the story at large, on even just like the plot, really. Like in terms of like just like the general sort of plot that is Dragon Ball Super, right? Like in terms of the arc, they matter so long as they're shown. But outside of that, they don't really matter, right? And so you can't expect that. That's right. That's why you see all these other universes who don't matter. We see them, maybe for like 15 seconds, right? And then disappear out of our minds. We don't care, right? And the reason that we don't care is because like there's no character development, like, right? And we expect that. So for me, if I don't care about this character, I don't feel guilty. I don't care. I don't care if I forget some random character's name from whatever universe, because they don't matter. They have no substance. This show is not about that. So now I don't have to feel guilty about like, not knowing the name of, blah, blah, blah character over there, or wasting brain cells trying to remember, this other character over there in universe, wherever, right? So there's that. Most of these characters don't matter outside of like, to say like, showcasing the artist's, character designs, right? Because I don't necessarily know if Toriyama designed all of these characters. Toritaro could have helped him out with that, right? So I don't know. But I do know that most of them are pointless outside of the characters that impact the narrative and impact the plot outside of the Tournament of Power, right? Outside of the universes, right? Outside Universe 7. So there's that. So I mean, look, these characters are pointless. Sorry. If you want character development and you want characters that matter, even if they're shown for like, 1 or 2 chapters, go read Hunter x Hunter. Go read Yu Yu Hakusho. Go read One Piece. You know what I mean? Like that's what you got to read if you want to show a battle shonen that does that quality work. If you are looking for that in Dragon Ball Super, you're out of luck. So yeah, I guess sort of the third thing that I wanted to talk about is just like where do we go from sort of like episode 100, right? Because like there are certain things that happen in episode 100 that we might sort of deem relevant in certain ways, but not really. I mean, I think the one thing that like Dragon Ball Super is like amazing at, and this is in no way a compliment, but what Dragon Ball Super is sort of amazing at is scenes in which we are supposed to think that a very like important thing is going to occur, and then that thing ends up being like completely irrelevant to any sort of ideas that we have about the show as a whole, about the narrative as a whole, outside of the Tournament of Power, right? So, Hit facing Jiren, who cares? I don't really care. Doesn't matter. We don't even know if they're really gonna fight, because Goku pops him and it's like, yo, right? Like it's like, who cares? Right, so immediately I'm just like, I'm not wasting my brain cells thinking about that. Because this show hasn't shown that those instances matter, right? And that we're really, really going to see certain matchups or whatever, right? We don't really see Kaba versus Vegeta much at all. We see them, but outside of that, like, no real substance, and, we expect that. So, stuff like that, like, sort of cuts to scenes that sort of allude to important things that are going to happen in the near future. Those scenes never really, develop into anything, and we shouldn't expect them to really develop into anything because it's clear that Toei Animation, and also just like Dragon Ball Super as a show, like hasn't shown that those scenes really matter. Like when, you know, fighters are facing one another, and like someone, you know, like we always expect for like, you know, someone else to come in and interrupt or whatever, and then we don't see the battle that we really want to see, right? When, you know, like something like you know, Goku facing Frieza in an episode, or you know, Goku facing Toppo, you know, in an episode. They don't really lead to anything that like is impactful. So, you know, stuff like that is all throughout episode 100, right? Kale, Khalifa fighting Goku. What, like, that's just Flash. Like, so okay, I'm coming here to see Flash. All of that stuff is, you know, the sort of like cut to scenes and cut to stare downs and things like that, and cuts to transformations. They don't have any real substance, and that's okay, because like I'm not coming in to I'm expecting that. But like I said, if you want a, you know, quality shonen that, you know, don't do that to you, and I'm not talking about anime, I'm talking about manga, because manga doesn't do that for the most part. But okay, you know, but okay, so since I am talking about an anime, if you want anime that do that, you gotta go somewhere else, man. You gotta go, you know, you gotta go to Hunter x Hunter. You gotta go to Yu Yu Hakusho. You gotta go to right now, yeah, that's about it. I mean, like I know there are other battle shonen that do a great job of things, but those are the two that, like, when you go there, you know you're gonna see quality work. And yeah, it seems like I'm hyping up Yoshihiro Togashi, and that's because he does quality work. Right? Like, sorry. I mean, that's just facts. Like, that's what he does. So, like I said, you know, those are sort of the points that I really sort of wanted to get into. You know, I'm not, like I said, like, this video is already pretty long. So, you know, episode 100, I'm not gonna do any rankings for Dragon Ball Super ever. I'm not gonna do if it was a 4.5 out of 5, if it was a, you know, 2.5 out of 5. I'm not gonna do anything like that ever for Dragon Ball Super, because I am already coming into it expecting a lack of quality when compared to other quality shonen, you know, like anime or manga or whatever, right? Like I'm just not expecting quality, and that's okay, because that's like my prerogative, right? And that's like my choice, and that's my right to do so. I don't have to. I'm not gonna expect quality from this thing. Like, it's consistently shown that it's not about quality. It's about what it's about, right? So I'm going into Dragon Ball Z. I'm going into Dragon Ball Super episode 101, thinking like, okay, when's the next flashy thing gonna happen? When are the next fists, you know, that don't have any metaphorical impact going to happen, right? Like, that's what I'm going in thinking, you know. So this is basically your review, you know, of Dragon Ball Super episode 100. You know, like I said, like, comment, and subscribe if you like the video. And even if you dislike the video, like, comment, and subscribe, right? Basically, you know, look out for another review of Dragon Ball Super episode 101. Because, like I said, I'm going to keep watching the series. I'm going into it a certain way, with a certain perspective. So, you know, this is the Black Manga Critic, and I'm out.